I hate to keep harping on the ending of Game of Thrones. In all honesty, I didn't even think it was that bad. But I have a good reason for bringing it up, I promise. The last season of the show hit a lot of low points. But the lowest point for me wasn't this, or this, or this. It was this.
You think you wanted revenge a long time. I've been after it all my life. It's all I care about. You want to be like me?
The showdown between Sandor Clegane, the Hound, and his brother, Gregor Clegane, the Mountain, ending in both of them plummeting to their deaths. This is one of the emptiest and most lifeless scenes I've ever watched on TV. What's so wrong with it exactly? The short answer is that this scene is poorly executed fan service. The long answer is, the whole rest of this video. More and more every year, the entertainment landscape relies on franchises, brand recognition, and nostalgia to hook its audience. Because of that, sometimes it feels like media conglomerates ignore the concept of a compelling and well-written story, and in its place just wave around the name of a thing you like. Even though it makes you feel good when you see that thing you like, it gives you that dopamine hit, it can also feel really empty and frustrating. A smaller part of this larger conversation is the discussion surrounding the concept of fan service. These smaller moments in a piece of media that show fans that thing that they really want to see, even if it's not directly related to the story. The word fan service seems to evoke a lot of extreme emotions, positive and negative, depending on the context. For every Game of Thrones, there's a Spider-Man No Way Home, which is packed full to the brim of fan service that everybody loves, including me. Depending on the way the term is used and what specific example it's describing, fan service can be the greatest thing ever, or something that poisons the thing it's referencing and the story it's in. I want to figure out why. How do you do fan service the right way? How do you mess it up? And what can Hollywood do to make sure that we get more of this and less of this? The first thing on the agenda, before we can talk about how to judge fan service, we have to explain what fan service actually is. When I first started writing this script, I thought to myself, yeah, I know what fan service is. The concept feels simple enough, but when you try to zero in on the specifics, it's surprisingly hard to pin down a definition. And you know me, I love debating about what words mean. Fan service is a term that originates from anime, and there, it refers to moments where a character is sexualized in an unnecessary way. Like, a show might go out of its way to include a shot of a female character in a skimpy outfit. And even though it has no relevance to the overall story, it's something that the straight male fans enjoy. When the term made the jump to other forms of media, its definition broadened. It wasn't about sexualization anymore. Now fan service refers to anything added into a story to please fans that isn't directly relevant to the story. It seems really simple, right? If a moment in a piece of media checks off these two criteria, it's fan service. But it starts to get fuzzy when you look more closely. For starters, what do we mean by fans? To be specific, I mean fans of previous installments of the story. You can't have fan service in a standalone work. Fan service is about pleasing members of the audience who already have an emotional attachment to the material. Also, when I say pleasing fans, I don't mean anything that makes a fan happy. Otherwise, we'd have to call any instance of narrative payoff fan service. No, it's more about giving the fans pleasure than true happiness. There's an element of hedonism to fan service, and it creates a similar feeling as eating junk food. It's a short-term reward. Fan service exists to target people who have strong positive feelings about a franchise, and briefly reignite those feelings by reminding them of what they previously enjoyed. But the toughest part of the definition to narrow down by far is the second half, the requirement that it's not relevant to the story. Watch, you'll see what I mean. To start with a pretty straightforward example, in Toy Story 3, we get a brief cameo from Sid, the kid from Toy Story 1, working as a garbage man. This is not directly relevant to the story, because you could cut this moment out and nothing would change. And it makes fans of the first movie happy because they get to see this character that they like one more time and find out what they've been up to. This is fan service, pretty cut and dry. Then how about this one? In Season 4 of Legend of Korra, Korra goes to visit Toph, a character from the previous show, Avatar: The Last Airbender, to get help removing poison from her body.
Toph? Nice to see you again, Twinkle Toes.
Fans were very happy to see this beloved character again. But it's part of the story though. Korra had a reason to go seek her out, a good one. It makes sense for Toph to be in the story. So this isn't fan service? I'm being hyperbolic here, but you see the issue, right? How do you decide what counts as not relevant to the story? Because unless it's really blatant, any fan service is going to be given some kind of narrative justification. That leaves the door open for someone to claim that if a moment has a logical reason to be in the story, it's not fan service. And that doesn't feel right. The problem is that the definition as it stands has an immediate negative slant to it. It creates an image of some detail shoehorned in, messing up whatever other good things are already there. It's not a meaningful part of the narrative, it's just in the way, giving returning fans a cheap shot of nostalgia before the stuff that matters can continue. The act of narrowing down the definition forces us to zero in on the aspects that are harmful to the story. But as I've already established, fan service can be good. It says right there in the definition we have that it pleases fans, makes them happy. That can't be all bad. For these reasons, what's classified as fan service is highly dependent on the individual media in question. It depends on how tight the narrative is, how long the story has been running, and how directly connected it is to previous installments. So for the Korra example, even though Toph is integrated into the story, it wouldn't be too hard to rewrite the season without her. Have Korra meet some new character, or solve the problem herself. The writers went out of their way to include an old character because that's something longtime fans would enjoy. That's why this is fan service. In the majority of cases, fan service is harmless. It's a minor distraction that gives fans something that they really want before focusing back in on the story at hand. Even if it isn't a well-integrated part of the story, there's nothing inherently wrong with it. Fans have developed a relationship with various characters, moments, and aesthetics from the franchise. It's okay to give them a glimpse of something they love that they otherwise would never see. The problem comes when that's not all that's happening. By definition, fan service is an interruption. It occurs within a story that has emotional stakes and plot momentum. The story at hand is trying to get you invested and make you care about what's going on right now. And here comes fan service, which pulls you out to make you care about this other thing. It's very difficult to include fan service without pulling audience investment in two different directions. The first level, tier 1 of bad fan service, is when it interrupts the flow of the story. Let's turn to Doctor Who for an example. That show is full of cameos from older cast members, some better than others. In one of the more recent seasons, a fan favorite character from season 1, Captain Jack Harkness, shows up for one scene to tell the main characters about a danger that's coming.
You miss me, right? This is important. He needs to know the future of the universe is at stake.
For any longtime fan who knows who this is, there are two emotions in their brains fighting for supremacy. One is, oh no, the current characters are in danger. The other one is, yay, Jack is back, I love him so much. Which one is stronger? I'd put money on the second one. Especially since the scene frames Jack in such an exciting and happy way. Which is a problem, because it's overtaking any feelings about the plot-relevant stuff he's talking about that'll be important going forward. As for anyone who hasn't seen the earlier seasons, this scene will make no sense to them, because the show is communicating to them that this guy is a big deal, but they don't know why.
If we met...
In either situation, the show is sacrificing plot investment to make this moment happen. But these kinds of fan service aren't so bad, because fans are still getting something that they want, and it's not completely derailing the story or anything. Tier 2 of bad fan service is when the writers of the story just don't understand what the audience wants. They try to please the fans, but they end up doing it in a way that just makes them mad. I have not watched Supernatural, but I know a lot about it secondhand from people who have, and by all accounts, this is what happened in the finale of the show. So for years and years, fans have felt that two of the main characters, Dean and Castiel, had good romantic chemistry and wanted them to get together. Everyone knew this was pretty much a pipe dream, since most TV networks are terrified to make their characters gay. But then, in an attempt to please those fans, the writers made it happen. Dean and Castiel got together. Kind of. I'm simplifying a lot here, but basically what happens is Castiel confesses his love for Dean in this super awkward scene where Dean just stands there with a blank look on his face. Then immediately afterwards, Castiel dies, and the whole love confession is never mentioned again.
I love you.
On paper, it gives the fans what they asked for. these two characters having a romantic moment together. But this is in no way what the fans wanted. They wanted to see the two of them begin a relationship, not for one of them to say "I love you" and then disappear forever. It comes across as teasing fans with something close to what they want, but not quite. Tier 1 is bad because it distracts from the main story. Tier 2 is bad because it distracts from the main story and fans don't even want it. But at least both of those are temporary. They can be bad for a moment, and then you can get back to the story. Now we're at the worst of the worst. Tier 3 of bad fan service not only distracts from the main story, not only is it something that fans don't want, but it also commits the worst sin of all. It derails the main story, permanently changing the course of the plot just to make the fan service work. We now return to Game of Thrones, and the fight between the Clegane brothers. For a while leading up to the final season, fans online had been saying that they want to see these two characters fight. Cleganebowl, they called it. So the writers decided that's exactly what they would do. Have them fight. Except here's the problem with that. When the Hound was a kid, his brother burned his face just for fun, leaving him traumatized. When we first meet him at the beginning of the show, he thinks that he's a broken man whose only purpose in this world is to fight and kill. Then, over the course of many seasons, he learns that he doesn't have to be a killer. He finds himself taking care of Arya Stark, and discovers that he is capable of love and compassion, and he can kill for the right reasons instead of indiscriminately. The rage and trauma slowly ebbed away, and he got over his blind hatred of the world and himself, leaving a mostly healed man. So it rings really hollow when the Hound ends his story by saying to Arya, "I'm a bad person, don't be like me. I'm going to throw my life away because my life doesn't matter, and all I've ever cared about is revenge against my brother." This goes completely counter to everything the story had built up to for the Hound. It completely soured his entire character arc. The audience thought they wanted to see the Clegane brothers fight, but the audience doesn't always know what they want. It's the writer's job to deliver a story that's satisfying and surprising, not give the audience exactly what they asked for. And the worst part about it all is that it's such an unforced error. This fight totally could have worked. All it would have needed to do is have the Hound choose to fight to save Arya. That would have made it a perfect capstone to his character arc. But nope, it seems like the writers put no thought into any of this besides, hey, let's make these two guys fight.
Of course, there's a lot of cheating in there. A lot of they fight.
So that's how you do fan service poorly. Given all the ways it could possibly go wrong, how do you do it well? To answer that, I have to start with another question. What's the point of fan service? Like, what's it for? We started to answer that question. Fan service is there to make the audience happy by showing something that they want to see, usually something that they've seen before and want to see again. But we can go further than that. It's not that simple. If a fan really wants to see the thing they like, they can just go check out the original media again. And if they really want new material with old characters they love, fanfiction is always an option. Why does it mean so much to people when big franchises bring back old stuff like this? Well, I think it has a lot to do with the fact that people view officially produced canonical installments as the real ones, the ones that actually matter. Sure, fanfiction is cool and all, but that's just an imitation. These are actual continuations of the story you love so much. And if it's a filmed medium, that's the actual actor who looks and feels just like the character you came to know and love. It doesn't take much to make fanservice feel like a direct continuation of the story you love, that we would never get otherwise. Also, this excitement is definitely connected to the sense of distance that we normally feel towards these giant corporations that own all the media we like. These big franchises are working under so many constraints, from doing what the studio heads and investors think are the most profitable, to having to please a wide variety of fans with different desires, to having to reconcile the different creative visions of many people working on the same project. As an individual fan, it can be really hard to feel like your voice is being heard. So, when that thing the fans have wanted to happen actually happens, it can feel like you broke through. It feels like the creators are stopping the content machine for a moment to say, hey, I see you. I appreciate you. That's what makes it more meaningful than the same thing happening in fanfiction. It's also why fans are really receptive to fanservice, even when it's kind of awkward and ham-fisted. They want to see the people in charge recognizing how much these stories matter to them on a personal level. So with that in mind, good fanservice goes beyond a quick empty reference. It needs to be part of the narrative, both the new current narrative and the old narrative it's referencing. If we think of fanservice as an official continuation of a beloved story, then the best fanservice will add to and recontextualize that story
Somehow Palpatine returned.
in a way that doesn't undermine it. So, like, take any episode of Doctor Who where there are multiple versions of the Doctor meeting each other. Since these are the same character, but with slightly different personalities, it's so much fun to imagine what it would be like if different versions could have a conversation. In these special episodes, you get to see that happen, and it's exactly like you imagined it. They chat about their different adventures, and bicker a little over their differences, but generally work well together as a team. It's a confirmation that you and the showrunners both understand the true nature of these characters. Besides showing you more of a thing you like, it also shows you a new dimension of the thing you like. Now, we can finally look at Spider-Man No Way Home. Because with all of that context, we can really get to the heart of what makes this movie work. This movie is made up of more than 50% fan service, but it never becomes grating because it's genuinely telling a story with all these versions of Spider-Man. First of all, it's just great to see Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield on screen as Spider-Man again. That's what the fans wanted to see, and what they never dared hope would actually happen. And beyond that, it's great to see all three Spider-Man interact with one another. Did that long scene of all three of them chatting about their adventures need to be in the movie? No, but it still meant a lot that we got to see it, for the same reasons as the Doctor Who example.
That came out of you.
Yeah. You can't do that, huh?
No?
It developed their characters beyond the material we already had. But going a little deeper, what really makes this all meaningful is the way No Way Home adds to the stories of these older movies. Both previous versions had stories that ended mostly on cliffhangers because they weren't able to get another sequel greenlit. This movie gives us resolutions that we never got by showing us Spider-Men that have grown and changed since then. Watching Andrew Garfield save MJ as a stand-in for Gwen Stacy gives both the characters and audience proper closure for those events. The treatment of the Amazing Spider-Man characters is especially interesting, because most people tend to agree that those movies weren't great. Here, No Way Home takes the opportunity to change what didn't work. Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man was criticized for being kind of cocky and arrogant. So now, Andrew Garfield plays him as more squirrely and underconfident.
I'm lame compared. Like, I fought a Russian guy in a rhinoceros machine.
Peter 1, Peter 2.
Peter 2.
Peter 3.
Peter 3.
All right, let's do this. Ready?
Wait. I love you guys.
Jamie Foxx's Electro was mostly hated, so they also gave him a new personality. Both of these instances allow the actors to play to their strengths and prove that it wasn't their acting skills that were the problem. I also think it's really significant that out of the villains they included, the ones that took a back seat were Lizard and Sandman, the mid-tier ones that nobody loved but weren't terrible either. The movie focuses on the ones that were great and the one that deserved a second chance. Besides being an MCU movie, No Way Home also functions as a sequel to both previous Spider-Man series. It gives us more of the versions of the characters that we liked, but it also wraps up everything we wished we had gotten back then, polished up the parts that weren't so great, and wove everything together in a way that both celebrates all things Spider-Man and tells a meaningful story. But none of that is the real key to why this all works. The thing that holds this movie together and keeps it from blending into self-referential sludge is that MCU Tom Holland Spider-Man always stays as the main character. He's the one with a strong character arc. His loved ones are in danger. And all of the characters from other movies are there to teach him something about being Spider-Man. The movie doesn't allow us to get fully lost in nostalgic throwbacks with old characters. It always makes sure that the Spider-Man that's front and center is the one that matters the most, the one we're supposed to care about long term. Spider-Man No Way Home has tons of fan service, but it uses that fan service to further the current story and characters. So in short, when including fan service, you can just throw in a scene or detail that the fans would be really excited to see. But if the only reason it's there is because it's a thing the audience wants to see, then it'll only create a tiny, fleeting moment of excitement. It's not a substitute for getting the audience invested in the story that's currently playing out in front of them. At best, it'll make the audience go, I wish I were watching that other thing that I like, instead of what I'm watching now. The best way to make fanservice work with the story is to make it part of the story. Give it consequences. Use it to develop the current protagonists and highlight the best parts of the current plot. Don't just throw in an empty reference. Make it matter.